Now, the big talking point coming out of this pay-per-view, there was a lot that happened, obviously, that we'll more so get to in a couple minutes. But John Cena making a surprise appearance. I guess it was reported earlier on in the day that Cena was in the area, that he might appear. I stayed away from that stuff. I actually did not see that until his music hit, so I thought that was a cool surprise. The third return that he's had at Money in the Bank since 2021, if you include that show and last year as well. No in-ring competition on this show, but he did announce his retirement from in-ring competition in 2025. So, like we were talking about before we hit record here, they made it sound like on the show itself during Money in the Bank, and they did this for a reason, because he was pretty heavily plugging the post-show press conference where he answered all the questions about what it's going to entail and when it's going to last and end and begin and all this other sort of stuff. So he kind of made it clear there. He made it sound like during the promo that he was going to have one more Rumble, one more Chamber, and one more Mania, which is true. That is true. But the way he kind of said it made it sound like, which you would expect him to, that he would have his final match at WrestleMania. But that's actually not the case. He said during the post-show press conference, it will be his final Mania, but that he'll be continuing to wrestle for the remainder of 2025. And he's looking around 30 to 40 dates. Now, that's not set in stone, but I would find it hard to believe if he said that, and he did not end up doing 30 to 40 dates. That's almost like every week. Not every week, but like close to every week or every other week. That's more than half the year. Now, that definitely includes, I'm sure, international tours, dark matches, and he said dates. He's not saying matches. So he could just be showing up on Raw to promote a match at the upcoming pay-per-view. He's not going to be wrestling every week for a straight year. But that's still pretty good. I mean, that's better than having one Rumble match, one Chamber match, one Mania match. So obviously massive news. This is not a massive surprise. It's more so surprising when it's happening and that they set it up the way that they did. I like the way that they set it up. But he has been saying in interviews publicly for a while now that he was hoping to close down his career in WWE by the age of 50. He's currently 47. By next April, he's 48, so he's kind of winding down a bit sooner than expected, but it's not as if his last few matches were anything really worth writing home about. They weren't bad, but like the Theory match, a couple of the other matches he's had in the last couple of years were not great. He's clearly not the same in-ring competitor he was even 5 years ago, but I think this is a perfect way for him to close out one of the greatest careers of all time. So, a lot to digest here, a lot to talk about, but just want to get your initial impressions, Mr. Marceau, of John Cena announcing his retirement in 2025.
Yeah, I didn't see any of the headlines or any kind of spoilers before, so I was a little bit surprised. That's how Cena saw the whole last times now or whatever, you can't see me when the door closes, whatever the hell. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest Cena guy, so to me, I was like, what are we doing here? He's like, in my last match, I was like, okay, but then he kind of dragged it out a little bit longer. Said he was going to kick some ass in Toronto, then he just left. But I mean, I'm glad he's going to have some kind of little farewell tour. You mentioned it before that he hasn't had the greatest matches in recent memory, so we'll see who he works with, what he does. But I mean, I guess it's kind of like that old player getting their farewell tour. This is our Cena farewell tour, and hopefully makes the best of it. Hopefully it's not like forgettable matches and no one ever recalls. So nice to see Cena here. Hopefully it's worth some substance. I don't think it can get much. I didn't really care for this Theory match. I don't think it could be any worse than that. So we'll see what he does. But yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, the Theory match was indeed underwhelming. And we talked about it at the time, not even just the match itself, but the fact that it did absolutely nothing for Austin Theory. And that doesn't fall really on Cena at all. That's entirely on WWE, the lack of aftermath and fallout and follow-up with Austin Theory. Cena, the only issue that I would have with him on that front was that he did Theory no favors with that promo on Raw. That you were there. Weren't you there for that promo in Boston or no?
I was.
Yeah, you were there for that promo where he the biggest burial I have seen in a promo in a very long time, if not ever. It certainly ranks high up there. And Theory was, certainly exposed in that moment. And it would be another thing, it also falls on Theory, if he were to rise to the occasion and prove people wrong. He was recently one half of the WWE Tag Team Champions, but beyond that, he really hasn't done much to prove people wrong about those criticisms that, Cena had of him in early 2023. But nonetheless, hopefully Theory is not among the retirement tour, unless Cena wants to get his win back on a quick SmackDown. That's totally fine. I would have him wrestle on Raw. I would have him wrestle on SmackDown. He did mention during the post-show press conference, he approached WWE with the idea to do this sort of retirement tour, but it was WWE who said, 2025 would make the most sense. Between, Mania being in Vegas, that's going to be a massive show for them. And then they also have the Netflix deal. They want to, time it with that. I would have to imagine he'll be in action on that first show on Netflix as they really want to load up that first Netflix show. I don't know if it's the first Monday in January in 2025 or if it's coming out of the Rumble. I think it's the first Monday of 2025, if I had to take a guess, from them leaving USA, going over to Netflix. We'll get to the possible opponents in a moment. But the biggest question is, Mr. Marceau, that people are wondering, does he chase number 17, his 17th record-setting? In WWE's eyes, Ric Flair has really won more than 16 world titles, but in their eyes, he's won more titles than anyone in WWE history, outside of the company and whatnot. Does he beat that number and become a 17-time world champion, or at least chase it? Or what else do you really do with Cena in the remainder of his time in the ring? Do you do stories? Do you do feuds? Is it like an open challenge type thing? What would you like to see Cena do in his final few months and the last year of his career?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm not really, down for a Cena championship run. I mean, I guess he could chase. I don't know if it's definitely necessary. I guess with the world championship, depending on who's holding it, doesn't totally matter. But overall, I'm not, way in on a Cena title reign. But I guess depending on who's holding the belt, I guess you could probably convince me depending on how it's going. But besides that, like you said, what else does he really do, though? I feel like, is he just going to have random feuds with people? And like you said, with the whole Theory thing, it's not, I think, like you said, that the whole promo didn't really help Theory out. And kind of, he was literally saying, even if you beat me, you're going to be no one, and kind of came true. But, I think if he's going to put over young talent, that's the only thing else I could see. But, I feel like he'll maybe do some other kind of matches with maybe some people he's had history with, Orton, Punk, maybe. So, we'll see. I'm not against it, but I think depending on the circumstance, it makes sense. But I don't think it definitely needs to happen either.
Does John Cena win the Royal Rumble and go on to WrestleMania to challenge for a world championship?
I hope not.
Well, let's look at the landscape right now. I think Cody Rhodes at this point will probably be WWE champion still by WrestleMania. I think Gunther becomes champion at SummerSlam. They'll probably both be champions until Mania. I could honestly see Cena facing Cody, or, I think Cody's probably facing Rock. But I could see Cody and Cena at some point. I could see Cena and Gunther. Both are fresh matches. And I don't know if Cena needs to be headlining either of those shows. I think Cena's last Mania match in and of itself is an attraction. I don't know if he needs to be challenging for the championship on that show. But I think that's a possibility, though. I wouldn't completely discount that.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't think, like I said, I guess my thing is I don't think he needs to, beat Gunther for the belt. I don't need to see that in 2025. Gives me Rusev vibes, honestly, but, if needed, I guess so, but like I said, I'm more focused on the future. Love you, John, but let's worry about the future and not worry about retired old people that, at this point, don't need to be holding title belts.
Well, I'm hoping he faces as many fresh faces and familiar foes as possible, but also, not losing every match. When you lose every match, then it's it doesn't really mean anything for these younger people to beat John Cena. So he should probably win at least half, if not more, of his matches. And like I said, I joke about the Theory thing, but it would make sense for him to run it back with Theory, beat Theory, maybe not necessarily on a pay-per-view, but on a SmackDown.
Yeah, but Theory's seemingly going face. So
I was just about to say, yeah, that probably isn't likely.
That would even happen. Hey, maybe they could team up.
Hey, listen, maybe he can endorse him that way by teaming up the same way that he, put over LA Knight by not facing him and beating him or losing to him, but rather teaming up at that Fastlane show or whatever pay-per-view it was late last year. So yeah, that's certainly a possibility. But he should probably win a majority of his matches, so it actually means something when he does lose. He'll probably wrestle, like I said, a majority of house shows. I don't expect him to wrestle every week. I don't know if he's going to wrestle at every pay-per-view. He did say Chamber, Rumble, and Mania, so we know that. He did tease Money in the Bank as well. I don't necessarily need to see a Cena World Championship run, but if it was done right, not really a Mania specifically, but coming out of Mania for a couple months, that might work out, but we don't know what the landscape will look like in a year from now, so who's really to say? I mentioned this on Hashtag on Wednesday, but would you also like to see Cena get his own show, like an event dedicated to his final match? Because there's no pay-per-view in December. There might be this year. I don't think there will be. The Rumble's not until February 1st now, so I guess they might have to. I don't know. But we're talking about 2025 here. Could they just televise the MSG house show, the Boston house show that you were at last year? I could see them televising that, making that Cena's last match. What would you like to see them do for Cena's final match, whether it be on Raw or a pay-per-view or just make up their own show for him?
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless of whatever it is, it should be obviously televised, something on either TV, Peacock, whatever. Not sure exactly what you do with them, but like you said, it should be like its own dedicated event for him, regardless if it's a Raw, SmackDown, house show. It should be like video package throughout, kind of the best of Cena and him at obviously main eventing, and it's the last time we see Big Match John in the ring. So I would go all out, but definitely should be televised, marketed, everything.
Yeah, no, he shouldn't just go out with a whimper with a match on just a house show, which would be cool for the people in attendance, but they really should televise that. But final question on the Cena front, going back to what you mentioned earlier as far as people he could face. We mentioned the Theory thing, maybe they team up. You mentioned Orton, Punk. Is there anyone specifically? You can name a couple familiar rivals of his, as well as new people that you might... I mean, again, Cena at this point in the ring is not the same Cena of 5-10 years ago, even 15 years ago, whatever. So, again, it's not exactly the Cena instinct. It's not Big Match John anymore. Let's put it that way. It's not the Open Challenge John from 10 years ago. But that being said, people you would like to see mix it up with or mix it up with for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll probably get him in Solo again. I assume it's the last person we saw him in the ring with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously Solo killed him. Maybe I don't really need to see Cena beat him, but should probably get that. He was involved in WrestleMania, so I don't know, maybe him and Dwayne, maybe.
Okay.
Roman. I don't know. We'll see what happens there. I'm trying to think who else. I think him and Theory, if they turn Theory face, maybe like I said, doing him teaming up and Cena kind of endorsing him there to kind of maybe help him out on the babyface front. That would be nice. Like I said, him and Orton, Cena, or him and Punk.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think who else. I mean, you could do him and Cody. I mean, yeah. I don't need to see it, but I think that'd be fun. I'm trying to think who else. Him and Rollins, maybe. I know him and Rollins had a little, SummerSlam 2015.
Yep, great match. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's endless opportunities, so I think you kind of just use what you have and try to get as much eyes on the prize as you can. And like I said, don't just beat Cena to death, but pick spots and maybe put some people over and still kind of show the best of Cena. So we'll see. I think it's a great opportunity for both of them, and they can sell a lot of red T-shirts and towels and hats. So
I'll probably have to buy one. I said this on Twitter, but I actually don't own in my 16 years of fandom, because I was never a fan of the fucking coloring box of T-shirts that he's always had. I've never owned a John Cena shirt, like a singular Cena shirt. I have shirts with him on it, but not a John Cena shirt. So might have to get that My Time Is Up if we're at a show that he's on or something like that, like in Boston or whatever. I'm sure he's going to be coming to the Northeast at some point in 2025, so might have to get one. But I'll throw 4 names at you, one being AJ Styles. You mentioned Rollins, and they had great chemistry. I would love to see Cena and Styles one more time. They always had amazing matches back in 2016, 2017. Fresh opponent here. I'm surprised we haven't gotten it yet, but it just hasn't worked out time-wise. Cena and Logan Paul, I feel like could be a really fun match. I know Logan Paul wants that match. He's talked about that match before. I think he even told Triple H, I think a year ago, I think he texted him or something. He said this on his podcast, that he wanted Cena at Mania, and it just didn't work out because Cena faced Theory and he faced Seth Rollins, which was a great match. But I think Logan Paul and Cena would be great. I mentioned Gunther. It doesn't have to be for the championship. I don't really want to see Cena beat Gunther. I feel like that's sacrilegious. That would just be dumb. So I don't really want to see that. Especially when Gunther is all about the prestige of the sport, and then he loses to this fucking washed up John Cena. That would just be silly. So no thanks, but I do want to see that match, even if Gunther kills him. And then finally, I think him and Breakker would be a really good match to do too. They had that quick face-off on NXT. I think when NXT was live, NXT's always live, but they were live against Dynamite back in October. And
the time that Cena and Undertaker were on the show didn't draw 1 million people?
Yes, they beat Dynamite, yes. Oh, we did 1 million people, yeah, because you had Cody Rhodes, Cena, and The Undertaker on your fucking developmental show. But yes, exactly. When Cena confronted Breakker on that show, they kind of planted the seed then. I wouldn't mind seeing that match at some point down the road. So we'll see what they have in store. I'm excited for it. I think this is a great idea as opposed to just doing one more match, one more feud. Kind of gives everyone a chance to see him in person one more time. It's going to do big business for them, which they tout all the time, obviously, and rightfully so. justifiably so. And I think that's going to be a big year for WWE with Cena's retirement tour culminating in December 2025.